Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an assortment of terrifying encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version. They were written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They're available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, and the links to those are in the description below. Now, everyone, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Also, a lot of these encounters today will have a lot of Native American kind of lore or feel about them. The majority of them contain encounters that were experienced by Native Americans. So, with that being said, let's do this. Today's first part of the upload. This is my father's story, written from his perspective. It follows an experience he had with a skinwalker on the Navajo reservation. When I was about 11 or 12, we lived in a small house made of mud and stone, a lot like our house is now. It was two of my brothers and I in the house. Everyone else had gone to the Gems Fest and left us to tend to the sheep. We were getting ready for bed when we heard the dogs going crazy outside. Thinking it was nothing more than coyotes howling in the distance, we told them to be quiet. We began to drift off into sleep, and the dogs would not shut up. Somehow I was able to go to sleep for a few hours. Then I woke up very late in the night. It was very quiet and still in the house, save for my brother's snoring and breathing. I realized I needed to use the outhouse and woke up my brother to take me there. He teased me about being scared, which I certainly was. We went out with our flashlight to the outhouse. The dogs began with their crazed barking out in the sagebrush, going from one place to the next. My brother went first, and I waited outside for him. While waiting, I tried to follow the dogs with my flashlight. Suddenly there was a very loud whine from one of the dogs. Then everything went quiet. It was really too quiet for this time of year. Not even the sheep were making noise. Suddenly I heard a few of our dogs going completely mad by the truck. When I looked over, there was this man. He was unbelievably tall, leaning one arm on the cab roof of the truck. He was looking at the dogs for a little, and then suddenly kicked one of them. They all scattered in different directions. The thing looked up at me, and I saw its face. It had pure white face, like the full moon, two burning red eyes, and a slight smile that was pure black. I couldn't move or make a sound. It began to walk toward me with long strides, until it finally towered over me. All I began to see was dark red, like the color of blood when you cut the throat of a sheep. I kept getting deeper and deeper into its eyes. I could faintly hear my brother coming out of the outhouse. With this, the thing looked up at him. Reality came rushing back to me. I noticed that my brother was too distracted with his buckle to realize what was going on. I also noticed this thing's long hands hovering just inches from my head. Its skin was black ash, and he smelled like bloated dead animal in the summer. I was still unable to move or speak. The skinwalker began to move toward my brother. Finally noticing this figure, my brother became paralyzed as I was. Closer and closer it drew, reaching an arm out toward my brother's head. Something finally snapped in me. I became unbearably angry. I broke from the trance and lunged at the skinwalker, raising my arms like a wild animal and baring my teeth at it. A growl came out that I never knew I could make. I became more and more angry at this thing that was trying to hurt us. It kept that smile at first, but the angrier I got, the more the smile faded. Finally, with everything I had, I began to make this primal roar at it. It fell backwards and ran away into the night, looking back at me. Its eyes were dim and dull, its smile now long since gone. The next morning, the family returned home from the fest. After relaying the story to my parents, they quickly hired a medicine man. Today's second encounter. My friend is Mohawk-raised Seneca Haudenosaunee native. He has received some training in shamanism, has a full kit, his mask, full regalia, the whole deal. One evening, my girlfriend at the time, H, this guy C, and I were at the local conservation area. He felt a presence and expressed an interest in returning at night to hold a ceremony. We agreed and returned 2 weeks later. There are wooden stairs set into the ground leading to the top of a lookout area, which at the time was under reconstruction. We arrived at midnight, climbed the stairway, and crested the hilltop. He was dressed in his regalia, lit some sage, and began to chant in Mohawk. The vibe changed immediately. I remember scanning the tree line as I looked around the area. On the second pass along the line, one of the taller silhouettes had gone. Had some 10-foot person or entity been standing between me and the trees? Before I could begin to wonder at the missing hump in the dark tree line, C had stopped his chanting. "Something is here. I think it's a shaman spirit," he said. He turned and began to chant again. At this point, off down the hill, I heard a screech. The best description I can think of is a garage door in desperate need of oiling, closing loudly. Then we heard it again. He turned with me, his eyes wide open, and said, "It's getting closer." The thing proceeded to approach us, somewhere above in the trees in the forest to our right. It was calling in regular intervals as it approached. This loud scree, 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 as we tracked it with our ears. We looked straight at each other, and then into the dark, and then straight up. The regularity of the cry meant the next one should have been directly overhead. There was nothing above us, against the starry background, and no further cry was heard. C wrapped up his ceremony, he gathered his things, and we started to leave. H told us she had a vision of a red wolf watching us from the forest. She thought whatever the spirit was, they were powerful and definitely not benevolent. I made the stairs before C and H and proceeded down them. A few steps in, and the flashlight showed a mass that was black on the stairs that most definitely hadn't been there when we came up. A crow wing, not a feather or parts like an animal, had been there. The whole damn wing. I remember towing the edge to make sure it was legit, what I was seeing. C came up behind me. "Please tell me you did not touch it." When I told him that I used my shoe to nudge it a little, he immediately got out his sage and washed the smoke all around me in a full body smudge, chanting in Mohawk as he did so. Then we went back up to the car and back to town. We commented that it still felt weird in the car, as it had on the hilltop. Dropped C off at his house, then my girlfriend H and I went home. Got home, I go to bed. H says she is going to read in the living room for a bit. I kiss her good night and go to bed. Sometime later, I'm awakened by a quiet knock on the door. I say, "Come in." It's my friend C. He looks scared. H said I could come in and see you. Are you okay? He told me then that it had followed us home. What do you mean? He described how he had gone to bed shortly after we dropped him off, fell asleep, and was awoken suddenly because he couldn't breathe. There was a pressure on his chest like someone or something was sitting on him, trying to suffocate him. As he strained for breath, just as he was worried about losing consciousness, the pressure had lifted. He'd got 1 or 2 deep sucks of breath in, and then the weight returned. He finally decided to come see me and to make sure I was okay, and if maybe we could fight back together if I wasn't. I told him that I had been sleeping just fine, but if he wanted to stay, he was welcome. He said H had agreed that that was a good idea and would sleep on the couch. C lay beside me. Also, as soon as he did, I felt it. My chest was constricted by an unseen weight, and I could not take air in. C grabbed my hand as I noticed he was not able to draw in breath either. And over the next long while, the same thing he described happened to both of us, the pressure and the gasping. And just when our lungs started to burn with the need, whoosh, pressure gone, one deep breath, maybe two, and slam. That unnatural weight on our chests again, over and over and over. Eventually, the assault either ended or we passed out. I remember waking up at some point much later, feeling someone beside me, remembering C, and being surprised when I saw H lying there. I remember saying, "Oh, it's you," and hearing a questionable mumble from her before sleep overtook me again. The first thing next morning, H asks me what I meant by, "Oh, it's you," comment in the wee hours. I explained I was surprised that C had left. "C," she says, looking at me like I was crazy. "Yeah, when did he leave?" "He hadn't come over." I was insistent he had. I know the difference between reality and dreamland, but no, apparently. I had a very vivid but totally normal nightmare. Nothing to worry about. Chalk it up to the strangest dream experience I had ever had, and we go on with our lives. 2 days later, H comes running into the apartment after work. She's a barista at a very cool indie coffee shop downtown that C and I both frequent. She explained that C had been in, and I was to go to his place immediately. "Huh? Why, H? Is everything all right?" She looked uncomfortable, not exactly scared, but not okay. She refused to give me any details, and to this day I am so grateful she did not. She just explained she had sent him home and told him to wait for me there. I got into the car and head over to C's, knock on the front door. His mom lets me in. I head to his room in the back, knock, and enter. "Hey, Ven, how are you doing?" he asks. I told him fine. Just wondering if everything is okay. You were gone when I woke up the other day. Immediately a tingle went through my whole body, and a chill iced my spine. "Excuse me?" "See, yeah. You came over the other night after we dropped you off, because something had followed us home and was suffocating you as you slept. When you laid down with me, it started hitting both of us. It still gives me the chills to this day." C had come into the coffee shop that afternoon and asked H if I was doing okay after leaving his place. She expressed some interest, confusion. He told her his story, and without saying a single word about me or my experience. She told C very calmly that she was done work at 5 and would very much appreciate it if he could be home around then, because she was sending me over there as soon as she got home. He was startled and agreed to do so. The reason I appreciate this is she didn't ruin the wonder of it by revealing the truth to us. She let us discover it from each other. Something did indeed come home with us, and apparently disguised itself as a close friend to conduct its paranormal torment. Came to C disguised as me, and came to me disguised as C. Today's third encounter. Recently I was walking up one of my longer road routes, and at one point there is a small intersection. A fire road to your right goes up a hill, while going along a paved road will bring you to an isolated wooded area, with about 3 houses spaced out from each other. In between this wooded area's random houses there is a quarter-mile patch of dense woods, where, from the road, you can clearly see a dilapidated abandoned farmhouse and a shed. We lived in this area for almost 6 years, near Traverse City, Michigan. I sensed something was watching. It happened 4 times. And although it was a bit scary, I knew I was not in danger, but I began to see these things in my mind's eye. More regularly, I walked that way, and the calmer I was, they were easier to see. There was usually 4 or 5, at least 10 to 12 feet tall. All of them had different animal skulled heads: a steer, a ram, an elk, a moose, and an ibex. They had massive bodies, like massive coats of different colored animal fur, and hand-type appendages that looked like freakishly long human hands. They were always led by the steer, and usually would circle around me, but never in a violent or frightening way. They conveyed to me they were protecting me. I asked from what, but got no answer. I noticed not long after encountering these friends, I began to struggle with time slips on my walk. Whether I have some extra weight on my frame or not, 2 of the 3 directions I can walk are radically steep climbs going home. So when I began getting home in less than quarter of the time, my wife stressed to me to stop taking music. I listened. One morning, coming back down my route my woodland friends resided in, the ram and ibex appeared suddenly, and I suddenly felt afraid. They relayed with anger they had warned me not to walk this way any more, and I was not heeding their warnings. If I continued to ignore their pleas, I would be left utterly alone to my peril. They slowly bent towards me, and I didn't want to look into their eye sockets, but that's all I could do. There was a horribly loud, screeching white noise, static sound, then silence. I rubbed my eyes and quickly continued walking home. I felt utterly disoriented and couldn't figure out why. I get home, and as I am walking up into our yard, my wife is frantic and shouts at me, "Where the hell have you been?" And I defensively told her she knew I was going for my morning walk. Her face conveyed something I was not initially catching. She asked me if I knew what time it was. I said I did not. She told me that it was noon. I had left for my walk at 7 in the morning, a walk that should have gotten me home no later than 8:30. When we discussed everything I had experienced, we both agreed walking that way was really not a smart idea. I do walk outside now, but not for long walks like I did. Usually just trips under 30 minutes. I've not had any more direct contact with these beings, but I know they are always there watching over the woods and observing humans. I still have no clue what they were protecting me from. All I know is I will listen to their warnings. Quick interjection before I move on. Like I've said, we don't know what the Dogman or the Bigfoot are. We know that they're here. We know that they're scary. I mean, God, who isn't going to be scary of a 10-foot creature that looks like a simian or a 9 to 8 foot Dogman creature? I am, and I'm assuming most of you are as well. But something tells me that the Native Americans really had a good kind of handle on things, and they knew things were bad. And that's why they kind of not necessarily made friends with them, but packs. You know, I mean, these portals exist all over this world that we live in. And, I think that these creatures may be here to this is a theory, and it's not etched in stone. It's not 100% what I believe, but they may be here to protect us from what comes out of those portals. There's a reason why that Native American shamans have the scariest freaking shape-shifting lore. Who the hell wants to go and meet up with a skinwalker or the bear walker from the Ojibwe? And there's multiple other ones, like, the Wendigo. Who's to say that these things are not the Wendigo and stuff like that from my culture, which is not down south, and does not look like what Reddit has convinced us all that it looks like. But who's to say that these powerful entities that these Native Americans talked about aren't from these portals, and these creatures such as Dogman and Sasquatch are just here not to protect us, but, to balance the tide, kind of. I don't know. It's just one of the theories that pops into my head every once in a while, and sometimes I got to get these theories out or I'm just going to go completely mental. But moving on. Today's fourth part of the upload. It was late summer and my mom and I had decided we should go on a spontaneous hike. We did our research and found one that said it was 4 miles round trip. Sounded easy enough. We got up early that morning and began our trek. The entire forest had a horrible vibe. Even my mom picked up on it, and she's never been into the paranormal, etc. We've been walking for hours now, and this forest just seemed to get weirder and weirder. We had plenty of water and food as well, so I really can't say if we were just dehydrated or tired. We began to hear singing in the woods, and we just stopped and stared at each other. We had to be miles into the woods by now, our step counter saying we have well surpassed the promised 4 miles. Where the hell would singing be coming from out here? We just looked at each other and began laughing. I remember her saying, "No way," shaking her head and carrying on. It's been quite some time now, and we haven't encountered another person on this trail. Suddenly this man walking really fast surpasses us and rounds a bend behind a rocky hill, so we couldn't see him anymore. He said no words, just came up behind us and darted past. Again, me and my mom laughed and envied his athleticism, until we rounded the bend ourselves to find that he was completely gone, out of sight. The path after the bend was fairly straight, and you could see far ahead of you, so there was absolutely no way he would have been able to clear out of that area that fast. This time my mom says, "You've got to be kidding me." We were thoroughly freaked out about this. Eventually we reached the peak, and after walking that long, you'd think someone would probably want to stay there for a while and enjoy the view. Well, we pretty much got to the peak, looked, then left. We never discussed it, but I could tell we were both uncomfortable and just wanted to get out of there. We're maybe halfway back through this trail now, and the sun is beginning to set. We're moving fast to get out of here. Our step counter said that we hiked 10 miles compared to 4. As the forest got darker, I began to hear leaves crunching behind us. I reluctantly turned around and noticed it was a buck several yards away. We hurried along as to not disturb it further, but then I began to notice something. It was following us from a distance. It did so almost like a predator, hiding and peeking. I tell my mom we're being followed by the deer, and we're pretty much jogging now. The buck would not let us go. I would sometimes notice that it would catch up and follow just beside us. It always remained several yards away, though, always lurking, head down. I've lived out in the country my whole life, and I've seen all deer you can imagine. I've never been followed by one like this. This seemed more than just curiosity. It felt horrible, predatory. I felt like I was in danger, always hearing those footsteps behind me. The feeling of being watched. Clearly, we made it out unharmed, but I really wonder if it actually intended to harm us or if it was just ushering us out of the forest. All in all, it was a freaky experience. Something is up in those woods. Today's final encounter. I am a Northeastern American from Norwegian-German heritage, so I am raised very spiritual, and I have ghosts of my own. Yeah, I know, laugh at the statement, but I have photos, videos, friends, family, exes, roommates, and girlfriends that have seen and experienced them. My Seneca best friend took me to see a shaman when I was a teenager after having some activity. people call the paranormal, and his father's friend, a shaman, said that I carry a lot of good energy, and I attract bad energy all the time. Well, in New Orleans, when I went to visit my cousin, I managed to pick up a shadow. So far, things match up. Anywho, I moved to Tempe, Arizona, which most people know about the Navajo and the Pima River communities. Well, this is actually the first day I looked at this. So, let's get to the good stuff. Last Sunday morning, February 21st, 2021, nearly 2 days ago, me and my girlfriend were in the living room playing a Gundam game. Well, we had been noticing my cat, Ebby, acting weird, staring out the back door all night, fluffing up from time to time and just glaring at the door. Finally, 4 a.m. rolls around and Ebby freaked out and cowardly into the hallway, hissing and growling. See, Ebby doesn't make noises. She doesn't even purr unless she is with me. She only meows when I make sandwiches because she wants the lunch meat. So when she's freaked out like this, it shook me and my girlfriend. We were curious and freaked out. I got up to calm Ebby down, and I heard my roommate, Andrew, wake up from the noise. I took a few steps to Ebby when my girlfriend cried out my name. I looked over to the sliding glass door that sits behind the couch we were on, and what I saw still has me shook to this moment. Sam, my girlfriend, was bolting past me when I saw 2 blood-orange eyes staring in from the glass, looking right at me and my girlfriend. Once Sam was out of the room and running down the hallway, the eyes locked onto me. Now that is mostly all I saw. I'm not a short or skinny man at all. I weigh 230 pounds, work out and work in construction part-time from my main job. So, I am not a small guy, but the eyes on this thing stood at least a half a head taller than me, maybe 6'4", 6'5" range. I didn't see much of a body, and what made me run was when the eyes went down to about chest level and moved to the right. I'm a self-defense advocate as well. I have pistols, shotguns, revolvers, hunting rifles when I go hunting, and my dad's AR. I ignored all of them. Instead, I bolted from the same hallway everyone else was running into, nearly slamming into Andrew trying to figure out something. I pushed Sam into the bathroom. It has no windows, so I figured safety. And then finally went for my guns. Within seconds, Andrew and I each had a gun. We called 911 and were in for the scariest 7 minutes I had ever been in. I barely know anything about witches, and the only reason why I call them witches is because I don't reference anything Native American by name. I learned the lesson in the Seneca lands doing stupid white people stuff, and I never researched them. But when all 3 of us cowered in a half bathroom, hearing scratches, knocking, someone running on the roof, banging, and sounds that sounded like knocking on the walls till it stopped, and we heard the wailing of the sirens coming. Here's where things get really weird. The police, as in more than one, showed up quickly. They said when an officer came to the house, he saw a figure banging on the side of the house before taking off, so he pursued after it, only to find it dipping down the alley right next to our house. When he pulled his Suburban into the alley, he had lost the thing. Police had us answer questions, investigated the house, and such as such. The police left our house finally at 6:30 in the morning. Sam stayed at my place, too scared to go to her house. Andrew called out of work, and I went in late, as I was working with my buddy Ray. He asked me what had happened last night. I panicked inside and was like, What? What do you mean? So I said, what do you mean by that, man? And he said, you just seem all messed up. So I described him what happened without naming what I know I saw, and he outright said, let me ride home with you. So we went home, and he asked how my herbs were growing when we were in my backyard. When I say herbs, I don't mean marijuana. I said, ready to be picked soon. Why? Well, He didn't say anything, just pointed at the trays where I grow my herbs in, and they were thrashed, picked clean. He only chuckled and said, "You got nothing to fear. It wasn't here for you. It was here for them. One of you must have done something in the past for him to take the need to scare you all. If we're his targets, it would have been much worse." With that, we walked in the house. He told me to smell the air. He said if I or anyone else was targeted, we would have noticed a rot and decay scent. Then he found freshly turned soil and dug it up. We found a wad of dried corn husk near where the herbs were, and said we should leave it. Removing it would be bad, but it had no ill intentions. He told me some things that I didn't want to write, so I'm not going to, but tonight I am burning some sage and cedar, and tomorrow I'm going to plant more herbs, specifically those it likes, but away from the doors and windows, so we don't get scared by this thing. So, like I said in the mid-section of this video, I really do believe the Native Americans had it right, and they, like I said, didn't befriend these creatures. They made pacts with them to remain safe because of spirits that their shamans may have conjured or these portals may brought in. You know, just a theory, and I have a ton of them. So many that my brain just sometimes feels like it's melting. I really think, part of me really thinks that the Sasquatch is kind of like the one to bring balance back to nature when these things cross over. Not the Dogman, but these other things, the skinwalkers or whatever you want to call them. Maybe the Dogman has just watched so many times that it picks up on that, but I don't think so. I really think that they do fight probably with these mythical creatures, whatever the hell they are, that come out of these portals and these black shamans summon. But yeah, like I said, theory. If I could sit and write down my theories about these creatures and what is really going on, people would think I was absolutely fucking bonkers. And sorry for throwing the F word in. I've got one subscriber that hates when I do it, and it happens, lady. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, the Anasazi, and you know, there's reasons why, man. There's reasons why the Pueblos, and they built these cave freaking houses way up, and had ladders to make sure that nothing. I mean, what's gonna climb up the ladder? They actually brought the ladder up at night. Well, coyotes aren't gonna. Buffalo aren't gonna. They knew something, man. They really did. And the government knows all about it too. And yeah, so with that, that's my end of my theories. Sorry, I know they sound stupid. And believe me, sometimes I feel like I need a tinfoil hat and a padded room. Anyway, just to end this, affiliations in YouTube and in the research community, it's kind of a messed up thing. You think you trust people, and they just kind of stab you in the back sometimes. I don't know if it's jealousy or what it is, but there's nothing to really be jealous of. We all want the truth, and we're really researching a subject that is, there's no physical evidence, man. We're studying a subject of speculation theory and second and first-hand encounters. And once in a while, a piece of hair or flesh. You know, and then you've got all these people that are out to backstab you and shit on you. But, yeah, I think I'm going to stop affiliating with people and just do what I used to do in my channel and just be me. And not, like, do any helping other people. I've got a couple of YouTube friends. Dark Waters is one of my bestest on YouTube. The guy is honest and he's true and he's the real deal, and that's why he and I get along, because I'm not gonna backstab him and I know he won't backstab me. But yeah, well, I don't know, now I'm just spewing. It's sad though, it's real sad when friends just stab you in the back because of I think it's jealousy. There's really nothing to be jealous of. We just want the same thing, the truth. Have a good night, guys. See ya.